and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. Start tracking your strain, recovery, and sleep scores with Whoop, and even get an extra month's membership and a free 4.0 strap when you sign up with the link in the description. If you like listening to us chat about CrossFit news and everything that's going on in the sport, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. On today's episode, we're discussing how CrossFit can gain more trust and confidence in the community. Here to break it down is Brute Strength head coach Matt Torres and head coach and founder of the program, John Singleton. It seems like this season we're seeing more instances where CrossFit has fallen short for one reason or another, from the early leak of the open workout and individual quarterfinals workouts to poor videos being validated and even some discrepancy in movement standards. John, I want to start with you. As someone who's been in the space since 2006 and really seen all of the ups and downs with CrossFit, is the community being too harsh, or should CrossFit be held accountable for these things?
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting point that maybe this is not necessarily new. It's just that there's more awareness of these problems starting to occur. You know, you guys obviously with the Morning Chalk Up have a huge platform, and I think that now information is shared a lot more widely, and there are more people involved in the sport. That actually there's just greater awareness through the community of these things starting to happen, and now these issues are kind of finally starting to get traction amongst the community as well.
Do you think that there are things that can be done to keep bringing CrossFit in the right direction when it comes to some of these missteps they've had this season?
100%. You know, like I think that, you know, we very much come from a place of wanting to improve the sport. You know, we're very aware that because if the sport gets better, we get better, it's beneficial for our athletes. And so, we're really just here to kind of help grow the sport. And so I think that, you know, when issues come up and they're raised, it's more that often the people who are raising them actually, it's not kind of trying to point holes in things. It's actually going, hey guys, can we try and fix this so, you know, next season, as we move forward, we can go forward with a stronger platform. So I think in general, the kind of people who are voicing their concerns are doing so because they also want to see a positive growth forward in the sport.
Matt, you have a handful of high-level athletes that you're training in Florida, and some have even been impacted by some of these missteps or issues we've seen this season. How are coaches and managers and even the athletes that you're training maneuvering some of these things that have been brought up this season?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, sometimes these things are out of our control. You know, we'll always take, especially me as a coach, and the athletes are always included in this, is we'll always take the approach of we're going to do everything in our power to see if something can be changed and done or made right potentially in any situation that it could be. But once we put all of our cards down on the table and we see the options that we have ahead of us, you know, we just forget what has happened and we make the best of what we have moving forward. And sometimes it's, you know, for me, it's, you know, covering my frustration with it and just showing a positive light to the athletes, you know. And I always like to look at things on the brighter side, you know, kind of like what John mentioned there. And I think he's spot on. These are things that have been happening in the past, but since we have a much broader platform to shine lights on these things, I think it gives CrossFit the ability to see these things that are, you know, pretty detrimental in some cases to the, you know, making the sport a professional sport like any other sport, and correcting those as soon as possible. So, you know, as far as the athletes go, you know, it's frustrating for them, but at the end of the day, CrossFit's going to do what CrossFit is going to do. And sometimes we have to bend with them and, you know, figure out the new path.
As two people who train high-level athletes, you're hearing it from the athlete side, but you both have been in the space for so long. I think you are both great sounding boards when it comes to moving the sport forward and having great ideas to help CrossFit as a sport. Do you think that there's anything that coaches or managers can actively do to see change in years to come?
I do think that the sport needs, there's a kind of the athlete association starting to form, but I do also think that one of the issues, I think the fundamental issue comes down to communication. And as Matt was saying, like a very valid point is that, there's you kind of hear about the decision and there may be some frustrations, and you're trying to shed a positive light to the athlete to make sure that, that they stay in the right frame of mind, that they're happy with the direction where things are going, and it doesn't have a negative impact on their performance. And then there's kind of the behind the scenes stuff where you're like, okay, hey guys, like this has happened time and time again. What's happening to ensure that in the future we don't have these issues starting to occur? This year, for example, like having the issue of, say, visas versus vaccination, meaning that certain athletes can't go to certain semi-finals. It seems kind of crazy, and I think it starts to seem crazy because there's no communication from HQ or home office or however it's labeled now as to why necessarily this has occurred, or it's not being communicated very well, and that leads to kind of speculation and people filling in the gaps, and that's where this whole kind of mess, I think, starts to occur.
And I think as far as the coaches' roles and the managers' roles, we have very limited say in this realm. I mean, just as much as the athletes do. Where I think our role is best played is to be best prepared for our athletes. And here's a prime example. Kind of what John mentioned right there is you really can't be best prepared about the semifinal thing and vaccination and Vax card. You really can't for that. But for some of the other things is, making sure that we're on top of our athletes to have everything done on time, covering all bases at all times, constantly being a reminder there for them. And, it's a professional sport, and we're going to act like it's a professional sport, even though at times it doesn't feel like it. So I think that's really for us as coaches and as managers, is to be on top of our athletes, even when they say, hey, yeah, I get it, like, get away, just coach me. We always want to make sure that all of our, T's are crossed and our I's are dotted,
So what could be some possible solutions for CrossFit to regain that trust with the community and the belief that things are going to be done correctly and things are going to be fair and balanced?
Prior to this year, I think with what's going on right now, with the, what is it called? The Athletes Association. I think that's a good first step, right? This is the, almost a year and a half that it's been, started, and they're starting to figure out where they can leverage themselves a little bit. They're communicating with the other athletes throughout the world as well to see if there's any input that they need from it. And, they have made some good strides. For an example is they listed out an entire season for us as early as possible, but then they make something fairly difficult, like the semifinal fiasco of figuring out where people are going, whatever is happening around the world. If we're unsure of what's happening around the world, let's not put such a big, competition there that means a lot to a lot of people if that country doesn't have any idea, what it's going to be requiring and not requiring, and then putting us in this situation. Little things, but they're making the steps. Now there's just going to be a couple more bigger steps that need to be put in place, and like anything, a little bit of trial and tribulation happens. We can only hope that the athlete association conversations going on between them and the and HQ resolves these issues for not years to come, but like right after semifinals. Like, let's clear out any potential issues that has happened last year or in years past between semis and the games.
Yeah, I think that there are, I think one very good point there is that there are some positives in terms of what the season has done and how things have moved forward. And that was kind of highlighting, okay, this is when the Open is, quarterfinals, and so on and so forth. And so, but I do personally believe that it once again comes down to communication. I think one of the things that's been promised from CrossFit, we've had so many changes over the last 2 years, from Greg moving aside, the new CEO coming in, the new CEO leaving, Dave Castro leaving. We've just had the sport has really been just completely changed. And I think that the one thing that's been promised at different stages of those changes, that there will be kind of some line of communication somewhere from kind of HQ directly to the community. But I still feel that's actually where things are lacking, and that things could be improved. And this isn't even asking right now for a two-way thing. It's just asking for, from the HQ side to the community, not even a route back from the community to HQ to give feedback. But I think, for me, I feel that, we've been on the receiving end. It's like we want to kind of actively keep pursuing that actually CrossFit are going to keep improving. They are going to keep taking those steps forward. So we can all move this sport in a direction where it starts to kind of grow, become stronger, encourage more sponsors to want to come on board. That can in turn help the athletes grow, help the managers grow. It helps the whole ecosystem. And right now, I feel the biggest roadblock to that, or two biggest roadblocks, are consistency in the season and kind of a lack of communication from the HQ side.
Matt, what would you say is the bottom line when it comes to gaining this trust back from CrossFit?
Repeatability, I think, is the one thing that I would say that they were lacking the most coming into this year. Not having same timelines, not having, fairness across each semifinal, and again, here's another positive thing that they took is, two of the workouts in every semifinal is going to be from HQ, so we're creating a little bit of fairness in here. I really think that if this sport is going to take a more professional stance, and kind of what John was mentioning is, getting bigger hitters in this game, we have to show that this sport is capable of being repeated like any other sport. There's not these mishaps. Now, great, I get it. Other sports have had many, many, many years, and in some cases, many decades to get it right. And they probably messed up much more than we did. But we have that history to find it quicker than any other sport did. So, for me, it's repeatable, seasons, repeatable timelines. Everything is clear and concise. And John hit it right on the head. Communication will always trump everything.
John, what's your bottom line?
Consistency and communication, if you want to sum it up. I think if you speak to the community, everyone loved the regionals format, and it worked for so many years. I think everyone believes also that the addition of quarterfinals was good. And so just in that whole package, you kind of have a very consistent season that everyone can then adhere to, and then finding kind of you can go into the kind of minutiae of what the consistency means, but in essence, communicating that to people as well.
John Singleton, Matt Torres, thank you guys so much for sitting down and talking to us about this ongoing conversation. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.